2015 president of the San Diego Association of Realtors, Ms. Chris Anderson.
Well, good morning. As Mark stated, I am Chris Anderson. I'm the president for 2015 of the Greater San Diego Association of Realtors. And on behalf of the leaders of SDAR and our more than 12,000 members, we welcome you to this very special International Real Estate Congress. The San Diego Association of Realtors is deeply honored today to host such a strong lineup of industry speakers, experts, and international delegates. We want to be sure that you make the most of your time here at the Congress. We have great plans for you that include making a lot of new contacts to do business with and to gain new ideas and techniques to be more profitable. Co-hosting this year's International Congress with Miami Association of Realtors for their 21st annual event has been such a great opportunity for us. Miami is top in the international destination, and boasts partnership with hundreds of international delegations, making this year's Bi-Coastal Congress a unique opportunity for our United States and international partners. We are most excited to welcome our international partners here with us today. Please stand to be recognized as I call your country. Russia. Japan. United Kingdom. I think there's some people still out in the hall. Brazil. Mexico. Costa Rica. And Bulgaria. I would also like to welcome the CIPS designees. We have over 30 certified international property specialists in the room. Please stand. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. And now, to kick off the program, I'd like to introduce you to the chair of the Greater San Diego Association of Realtors International Council and the SDAR past president of 2010, Mark Marquez. Mark will be emceeing for the 2015 International Real Estate Congress today. Please welcome Mark Marquez.
Good morning, and thank you for attending the event today. I just want to take a second and point out that the USB drive that you see here is a foreign investors guide. We learned from Miami at their Congress that they do a wonderful job of preparing a very multi-language oriented and translated foreign investors guide. So we provided that for you today for California. And our practices in real estate are a little more specific and vary. As you know, state to state transactions occur a little bit differently. And so we hope that that makes your experience here in California a pleasant one and gives you some information to take back to your countries or your local state and to discuss with your folks. So we'd like to take this opportunity as we head into a robust and diverse lineup of speakers today. We'd like to open today's event with the national anthem. So please rise.
The national anthem. No, do you need this?
You may be seated. Thank you. We have a very special guest today to begin our program. Congressman Scott Peters is a civic leader who has made improving the quality of life in San Diego's life's work. After a 15 career as an environmental lawyer, Scott was elected to the San Diego City Council and later became the city's first city council president. On the council, Scott helped lead the $2 billion redevelopment of downtown San Diego, the cleanup of the city's beaches and bays, and the completion of the number of major infrastructure projects. A lot of the results of the Gaslamp Corner, the beautiful environment that we've created downtown, are a product of Congressman Scott Peters. So at this moment, I'd like to welcome Congressman Scott Peters.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark, and it's okay. Thanks, Chris. Congratulations on a great showing. Welcome to San Diego. I wanted to just come out and say welcome to my adopted hometown. I've lived here for 27 years. I moved here from the Midwest, never thinking I would be a Southern Californian, but I wouldn't have it any other way. This has been a fantastic place to raise my kids and wake up every day just a few minutes away from the beach with usually very pristine weather. Let me tell you a little bit about my town. Our economy is powered by three main drivers. One is tourism. So thank you all for being here. We hope they let you out of the room to spend some money in the town. What you'll find around here is the product of a lot of hard work in redeveloping downtown around our baseball park, which opened in 2004. That spurred about $2 billion of private investment right around here and has created the real bones for a downtown that distinguishes us from a lot of places in the West, particularly in California, and offers a lot of opportunity for economic development. So tourism is a big thing for us too. You'll see this hotel and a number around here, very, very important to San Diego. The second big part of our economy is the military. Today's Veterans Day, so thank a veteran if you see one out there. If you're a veteran, if you served, thank you for your service. That'll be an important commemoration here in San Diego. The military accounts for about 20% of our jobs, over $35 billion in annual economic impact. San Diego is a proud partner in our national defense. We're mostly Marines and Navy, but if you're an Army vet or a Coast Guard vet, we'll treat you well too, or even Air Force. Someone's out there, right? See, always the one you don't say. But it's also a very important part of our economy. So we have 7 major military bases just in my congressional district here. And so the link between San Diego and the United States military is very strong and a proud one. Finally, we have a great technology and innovation sector that's going to be a real foundation of our success and our growth. Our largest private employer is Qualcomm. Qualcomm was started here because a professor from MIT named Irwin Jacobs was out in Boston. And he's got an offer, he'd had an offer to start the engineering department at a new university called the University of California in San Diego. And he and his wife talked about it. Their family was all in Boston. They said, nah, we're not really that interested in doing that. Then he said a couple days later it was raining in Boston and he was on the T, which is the train. And he said the overcoats just smelled so bad he started thinking again about that offer to go to California, and he took it. It's because it rained in Boston that day that San Diego is a center of wireless technology, and we're very proud of what that's done for our economy. We're also the second or third leading center for biotechnology in the country. We have an amazing set of research institutions out on the Torrey Pines Mesa in La Jolla, the Salk Institute, Scripps Research Institute, Sanford Burnham, along with UCSD, who are really figuring out ways to cure diseases using basic scientific research. Some of the smartest scientists in the world. There's an old joke, a lady goes into a bar in La Jolla, sits down, and a guy comes up to her and says, tries to impress her, says, hey, I have a Nobel Prize. And she says, yeah, you and everybody else in this bar. So we have tremendous number of PhDs in San Diego, a lot of very highly educated folks. We have a great clean technology sector here. We're one of the biggest deployers of solar. We're also the biggest per capita users of electric vehicles. We started some of the first work on smart grid technology, making the electric grid more efficient and more reliable. And we have a big military technology sector here. So you read a lot about drones. A lot of that technology started here with General Atomics. Northrop Grumman's work on that is centered here too. So there's a big, growing, burgeoning technology industry here that I think is going to really put San Diego, make us well positioned into the future. And finally, I just say a word about trade. We are very, very, whatever you've heard from the elected officials in debates about how awful Mexico is, we are very excited about our relationship as a region with Mexico. There you go, see? I asked the Regional Chamber of Commerce, what's the most important thing for me to work on when I was elected to Congress, this is my second term. They said, you know, the border crossing, there's so many delays and it's just so hard to get across. It's costing us billions of dollars, tens of thousands of jobs, and the funding is stalled. And so the five of us in our region, Republicans and Democrats, worked together to get the remaining funding for that. We're going to reduce those border waits so that more commerce can happen. And also, I'm a supporter so far of the trade agreement that has been negotiated for the United States with the Pacific Rim countries, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I have not been able to look at it in all 6,000 pages, but I have some time. I invite your attention to it as well. It's on the internet if you need something to do. But I think it offers a lot of opportunity for opening up markets. That's going to position San Diego as a great place to be too. I love it here. I hope you have a great time here. I see you have a really great panel of people coming after me. I do really hope you enjoy San Diego, that you come back. And if you find us a great place to visit, I hope you'll find us a great place to invest. Thanks for being here and have a great day. Happy Veterans Day.
Thank you, Congressman Peters. We're very grateful to have him here today. He has great insight into our city and to what makes our economic bullet points go around here in the city, so we really, really appreciate that. Okay, moving right along, we're here to learn about real estate today in San Diego's market, but also to learn about real estate in your markets. We're going to hear from expert speakers on our economic growth, outlook, jobs, industries, and revenue, and of course, commercial and residential real estate. To set the stage for what you'll learn today about San Diego, please welcome back President Chris Anderson, our 2015 president, and also Corey Shepard, our 2016 SDR president. Thank you very much.
Okay, so about San Diego. Okay, so our climate here, the easiest job in all of San Diego is to be the weatherman because it's pretty much sunny and 72 every day. And we did have a little bit of rain, that's very rare. We do need it badly. We have about 70 miles of coastline in our county. And we were named in 2013 as the second safest city in America. So that's kind of neat. And as Scott Peters had said, we have the highest population of college graduates in California. And we have magnet schools, charter schools, and universities, both public and state universities. Chosen as the best, chosen as the best city to launch any of the startups, just as Scott Peters had said. We have a great industry that is here, one of the most competitive sales tax rates in all of California of 8.75, and the lowest business tax. Our neighborhoods are extremely diverse. We have a very, very large county. So you have cities and then you have the county areas. So what we have are the coastal areas like that are the high end. Anything west of I-5 is going to be your higher end of real estate. And so we have Coronado, which is very high. We have La Jolla as well. But as you go further east, you're going to have a lot more affordable housing and larger lot sizes. So we have a very, very wide range of affordability in our county. So of course, if you're at the coast, it's not really that affordable, but you can find something if you do come here to San Diego to invest or to live in. All right, Corey.
Thank you, Chris. So we'll talk a little bit about economy and the status of jobs in San Diego County. And San Diego economy right now is picking up steam as our recovery continues to happen from the recession that we all experienced in 2007. San Diego's economic expansion is all across the county. Our economy ranks above 3/4 of the world's countries and nearly a half of all U.S. states. San Diego's economy grew 1.8% in 2014, above the 10-year growth rate of 1.4%, and is projected to grow 2.9% in 2015. So a very robust economy happening in San Diego. This is a chart of the world ranking of countries based on GDP. San Diego's economy is equivalent to the 55th largest country in the world, with GDP just slightly trailing countries including Romania, Kuwait, and the Czech Republic. And this chart is San Diego's ranking, it's the ranking of U.S. states by GDP, and San Diego's economy is equivalent to the 27th largest state in the United States, similar in size to the states of Kentucky, South Carolina, and Alabama. So there's lots of reasons to invest in San Diego, including our employment, our strong job market, and our annual job growth. San Diego County's July 2015 unemployment rate recorded the third largest drop among the 25 most populous metro areas in the U.S. San Diego had the sixth highest employment growth rate from July 2014 to July 2015, ahead of the California metro areas of San Francisco and Los Angeles. When looking at employment growth, San Diego outpaced most of the nation by growing 3.5%. The region added 47,800 jobs, of which 43,500 of those jobs came from the private sector. San Diego's research institutions have a $4.6 billion economic impact on the region's economy. Employment in the professional, scientific, and technical sector has grown by 7.4% since last September. All scientific R&D, including for-profit enterprises, generates $14.4 billion annually in economic impact, roughly equal to San Diego's visitor industry. San Diego is the most concentrated R&D market in the U.S. The industrial vacancy rate of 5.1% at the start of the second half of this year remained the lowest ever recorded for the San Diego region and represents 21 consecutive quarters of net occupancy gains. San Diego's median home price is 8.6% higher than it was a year ago, and investment in software companies continues to be a bright spot for venture capital in San Diego. Continue with top reasons to invest. Above average salaries. We're well above the California state average and will remain so for the foreseeable future. Salaries are expected to increase 1.4% annually. Chris?
All right. So as you can see, we have the GMP and the employment sector. Oh, sorry. There we go. Like we had said, we have a very diverse sections to have our job areas. The government and the financial activities are the largest, so with 23 and 21%. And then the professional business services are 15%, but then all the other little ones make up the rest of our area for the industry sector. And then the employment by industry sector, you have, again, government is equal with the professional and business services.
So we'll talk very briefly, and the Economist will cover this more this afternoon, about real estate, commercial, and residential properties. So we had, leading up to this quarter, 13 straight quarters of positive net absorption in the industrial market space, and that's led to a combined 7.2 million square feet of occupied office space in San Diego. Our office market has had the lowest region-wide vacancy that we've seen in the last 7 years. And we have a strong housing market in San Diego. San Diego boasted the 8th fastest annual home price growth rate among major U.S. metropolitan areas. And our foreclosures have steadily decreased over the last few years, down 23.7% in 2014. In 2014, San Diego had the 8th fastest annual home price growth rate, as I just mentioned, among major U.S. cities. It's remained one of the most expensive for sale home markets in the U.S., according to our National Association of Realtors. Home prices increased about 7.3% in the San Diego region from the previous quarter, and again 8.6% from the previous year. With this accelerated growth, San Diego's home prices are nearly certain to remain higher than most other major markets for the foreseeable future. Our average sales price of a home as of October was $510,000, and our average sales price of a condominium is $350,000. Foreclosure rates really have normalized in the county and across our state. Our foreclosure rate in San Diego County has dipped below 1% and remains lower than the national average, which is currently at 2%. Our inventory of bank-owned and foreclosure properties stands at 7.7%, meaning that we have a normal market of 92.3%. One of the challenges that we've had across San Diego County over the last few years is supply. We're still very low in supply. Our supply stands at a historical low of 2.5 months, where a normal supply is considered to be between 5 and 6 months inventory. With interest rates also remaining at historical lows, combined with an environment of rising rents, it's less expensive to own than rent in many of our bedroom communities.
Okay. So for the San Diego area, for our international buyers, what we have is 22, according to the National Association of Realtors survey, we have about 22% of the total of our sales are international buyers. And the average nationally is 8%. 64% of those who responded to a survey that NAR had prepared said that they have worked with an international client, and that's compared to 35% nationally. So we are definitely over double of what we had what the averages are. We have buyers, in 2013, 8% of the buyers in California were international, which is the highest number since 2008, so they are coming back to invest in our areas. 30% are from China. We have 13% from Mexico, 9% from Canada, and 6% from India. So the top 3 states for international real estate are in 2014 was Florida with 22%, California with 14%, and Texas right behind us with 13%. So we are the number 2 choice. So as I had said, there's 64% of the realtors in San Diego say that they have worked with an international client in the past year. Miami has 72%, we have 64%, and then nationally, again, the average is 35%.
And in San Diego, at the San Diego Association of Realtors, we're working on an initiative along with Florida, and we thank the Miami Association and Teresa Kinney, who's their fabulous Chief Executive Officer of the association, to create an international real estate collaboration. And we're here in partnership today with the Miami Association of Realtors. Our objectives are to create a data repository so that we can all take for our information from our local markets and across the United States and around the world and create a repository for that information, a place where you can go and find a published guide to explain the best practices for purchasing real estate and doing business in the United States and internationally. And also to create an international market newsletter to stay up to date on San Diego and around the world. and to pool each partner's area of expertise. Our second objective is to build to host international events like we're doing here today with the Miami Association of Realtors and all the great participation from the other countries that are represented here today, and to continue with those international events on an annual basis. And for us to also go visit you in your countries. And then to coordinate with trade delegations and to make sure that our Port Authority is involved. They've been a great partner with us, as well as the Airport Authority, to make sure that travel becomes easier to get to from other countries to San Diego. So those are our initiatives at the San Diego Association of Realtors. Thank you.
Our next panel will focus on long-term growth in the housing market, presented by Nathan Motor. Nathan is principal of the London Group and is a real estate economist whose clients include real estate developers, investors, corporations, financial institutions, businesses, and public agencies. He teaches real estate finance at the University of San Diego, University of California, San Diego, and the Woodbury School of Architecture for Real Estate Finance and Development. Please welcome Mr. Nathan Motor.
I was told to stand at this podium because I guess this is better with lighting and this is my better side, so you get to see the better side of my presentation today. Perfect. I think the previous speakers just before me did a wonderful job of setting up what San Diego is and kind of a parlay into my presentation, which is more focused on long-term growth and housing in the region in San Diego. For those of you out of town, I think you'll be able to appreciate and take from my presentation today some common themes that we're experiencing as we're entering a new chapter of growth, not only in California, but other areas of the country where we're looking towards urban infill for growth. And I'm going to focus on housing. We're very optimistic about San Diego and Southern California. San Diego specifically because of all the reasons you heard just a couple minutes ago, that we are very diverse in terms of employment. We have great job numbers, housing market numbers are strong, and our economy is diversifying from more tourism, and we've always been diversifying towards more high tech. We heard biotech from Congressman Scott Peters. Biotech, high tech, professional services. We're a very diverse economy, and we're entering even more higher paying jobs in San Diego. So the question is, how do we accommodate this growth over the next 30, 40, 50 years that is going to be coming down the pipeline? And my presentation today is the challenges ahead of where and how we will live. Okay, and the presentation that the two things I want you to take away from today, I like to kind of give you a bottom line today, or up front, is that there's a disconnect between how we're planning to grow and maybe some of the tendencies of how we want to grow. And that'll come forth in today's presentation. The other thing is to remember is that this is a new chapter, and I'm going to, in my presentation, you'll see how we're entering a new stage of growth in San Diego County. Historically, just to give you a recap of how we've done in San Diego, is the San Diego region has about over 1 million housing units, 1.1 million housing units on the ground today. 60%, most of it's single-family homes. 36% is multifamily, and 4% is mobile homes. The forecast for the next, through 2050, so about 35 years, is we are planning for another, I didn't do it. We're planning for another 1 million people in the next 35 years. So what that means is we need about 9,000 new homes, new housing units, 9,000 a year, for the next 35 years. That's about 330,000 housing units. We're adding about 30% more capacity to the region. Now, how have we been doing? Since 2010 to 2014, just the last 4 years, we've only been adding 4,500 units a year. We need about 9,000 to 10,000 a year. We've been adding 4,500 the last 4 years. So basically what we've been building is 1 unit for every 5 to 7 people of new population growth. And that's the end of the forecast. And if we go back the last 14 years, let's just see how have we been growing the last 14 years. Go back to the year 2000. That was the last kind of housing boom that started in 2000. If we went back all the way to 2014 years ago, we built about 9,200 housing units. That's pretty much what we need going forward, 9,000 housing units the last 14 years. But here's the catch. Here's what we have to think about. The last 14 years, we've had vacant land. We've had vacant parcels where we can, I guess you would call it urban sprawl, where it's easier to do that type of development. And today, we no longer have that vacant land. It's pretty much extinct. And we have to turn inward and do infill. It's more complicated development. So while historically we've done 9,000, it will be a challenge in the future to be able to keep up with that number. Maybe it wants me to push the button. So, I'd like to talk a second about who we are and how we're going to grow. This chart shows the millennials, generation next. Okay, millennials is the Gen Y, and right after Gen Y, there's Generation Next, who are the cohort of people that are under the age of 20. The millennials, there's 78 million millennials in the market today, mainly between the ages of 35 and down to 20. And they're larger than the baby boomers, and they're starting to move through the housing pipeline. In San Diego, we have more millennials and Gen Next than we do baby boomers. Where are they living? So this generation that's moving through the housing inventory, most of them right now are living in the city. The green is the bars that, or the grayish is those that are living in city environments. And the millennials, the younger generations, you have a higher concentration in the city areas. And as you get older, the Gen X, the boomers, and the war eras are basically living in the suburbs. So here's something interesting, is there's always been popular belief for years that millennials want smaller units. I'm sure you've heard it. All you have to do is pick up a paper and pay attention, and you'll see millennials want exciting places to live. They want urban, they want downtown, they want really tiny units. And long ago, I started asking students, because I teach at various universities and classes and guest speak, and every single time I go in, I ask the college students, I said, picture yourself, you're 35, maybe you're 40, 45, okay? You've now coupled up, you have a family. Where do you live? Virtually all of them are saying single-family homes, and they're saying suburbs. And there's research that's now coming out and talking and seeing the transition of these housing preferences, that millennials are not wanting the smaller, the urban, the dense. They're going to need more space. And Urban Land Institute, NAHB has published studies that they're going to want to expand, and the preference is, and the tendency is, as this chart shows, is that millennials will downsize the concentration in cities. They'll move from the cities to the suburbs. So who expects to move from rentals? The other thing is, what about home ownership? We've also heard that, well, maybe they're so scared from the recession that they won't want to own any homes anymore. Of all the surveys here on the chart, on the very far left-hand side, you could see currently 37% of millennials own their place. But they expect to move away from rentals and increase home ownership. It's expected to go up to 70% ownership in 5 years. Most millennials want to own their place as well. So this begs the question of how are we going to plan? How are you going to accommodate this population that may transition out of smaller housing units and go into larger homes? It was a completely different thought when we said they'll be forced to stay in these smaller units. It's contrary to what's happened before. The baby boomers, Gen X. I'm Gen X. My friends that live in San Francisco City, they're starting to get over it, and they're saying, I'm moving to Oakland. I need some more space. So we can't just assume that for some reason millennials and Gen Next behind it, which is bigger than the baby boom generation, is going to be satisfied with smaller housing units and be crammed into those units as well. So how do we plan for that growth? 3 typical responses to planning for demographic growth. One is we can rebuild these suburbs as villages, add some density. And these villages will be urban and they'll be mixed use because it'll be walkable communities, entertainment, everything else, and build healthy places. I'm still trying to figure out what build healthy places is. I've heard it all over the place and it's a good buzzword. But let's back up for just a minute and I'll talk about how the forecast came into be. Why are we talking about suburban villages and adding density to the villages? And here's where the disconnect comes into play, because now what we're talking about, populations that want to move to the suburbs, possibly want larger housing units to accommodate their families as they get into those years. So if we look at how we came up with how we're going to plan and stuff another 300,000 housing units in San Diego, basically we have to. Okay, originally what happened is we had a series of bills through the state legislature, and you've heard AB 32, SB 375, all these kind of bills with numbers after them, and I'll just tell you what they mean. Basically, state of California said that we want to curb greenhouse gas emissions, and the way to do that is to cut down on commute times. So we need to stop urban sprawl, and we have to focus inward for growth. So this is state mandated. The state also then turned to the cities and said, cities, you need to start planning for these 300,000 housing units, and where are you going to put them? You need to put them within your city. And then SANDAG, who's the regional agency, takes these numbers and does their forecast and says, here's where all the numbers are going to go, and here's where they will all be dispersed, because it's according to the city plans. So SANDAG's not at fault here. This is just all part of the planning process. And for the first time ever now, SANDAG says in the past 2 decades, this is the first time that we've had enough housing allocated to accommodate future growth. Before, SANDAG says we're always falling short. This time they're saying that we have the capacity. So what does this growth look like? That's interesting. Okay. I don't know why it says value, but on the very far left, I'll just tell you today, that's our current housing stock, the 1 million housing units. The orange up there, the 418,000, that's 36%. And the single-family homes, the 697, that's 60%. That's what's on the ground today. That's how we've always developed, is 60% single-family homes. Going forward, you see a big orange bar. That's the next 35 years. That's 82% multifamily, only 18% single-family homes. This is a fundamental shift in how we've grown historically. And we could be right. People may flat out accept higher density housing and living in apartments and townhomes and condos because there's no single family homes. And maybe they will stay in this region instead of going to other places where they could have better quality lives in single family homes. There may be a trade-off there. But what that ratio shows is basically 8 out of every 10 housing units will be a multifamily unit. So this area that's in gray now, that's kind of the area that we're forcing people into housing units. Just show of hands. If you live in a single family home today, raise your hand and keep your hand up. Keep it up. Okay, keep it up. If you're sitting on this side of the aisle right here, you can keep your home. The rest of you, you have no choice, but you'll have to live in a multifamily unit. That's what growth looks like. So it's very profound, and some of us may say, well, we'll just get used to this new type of environment and living, but we have to think, is this something that we can take to the bank and say, this is a fundamental growth plan? We can go ahead and shut off the single-family home pipeline right now. And there won't be a choice. So, housing prices can increase and all those kinds of things as well. So I'm going to leave this slide up here for a while. But that's the kind of growth that we're talking about. And again, it's all from state mandates and all those things. Essentially, what this boils down to is we're doing a 35-year housing experiment, in my opinion. Because there's no proof that people would want to live in these higher density communities at the ratios that we want. I don't know if all of you that are going to be forced into a single family home or into a multifamily unit would want to accept that. You may look at other alternatives. This generation may look at Raleigh-Durham, Houston, Austin, where there are interesting areas for high density when you're young and it's hipster. But then they also have the land capacity for further expansion of single-family homes and when you're ready to have those, to have children and expand your household. And those areas that I just mentioned are one of the hotbeds for millennials because there's stuff to do and housing costs are much lower too. So this is all stuff that we have to think about as a region and in California too, because there are pockets, other than San Diego that are experiencing the same phenomenon. And we just have to kind of see, well, is this the right path to grow? Is this path forward the right path? And if not, what can we do to change it? And how do we adapt to this in the short term? Even if we say 82% will be multifamily, that doesn't happen overnight. All of you are not going to sell your home and go into a multifamily unit overnight. You'd have to get used to it. This generation will have to get used to changing housing preferences. The other thing that we need to talk about is when we looked at the community plans and the cities, and we've seen this in our line of work in consulting and working for projects in different cities, we've already been seeing this the last 10 years on these plans that are coming into fruition. And when we talk about multifamily units and high-density housing, they work in the most vibrant communities. Downtown, perfect example, right? It's the epitome of density. There's a lot to do here. A lot of millennials want to come here. The apartment market is on fire down here. We have about 9,000 apartment units planned to be added in future inventory in downtown alone because it's such an exciting place to live. High-density housing works in places like, I'll just say Pacific Beach, Mission Beach. People will sacrifice high-density housing because they want to be near the beach. It's that community attribute. And what we're seeing, too, is the infiltration from downtown into what we call the urban ring, the hipster places, Hillcrest, North Park, South Park, Golden Hill. It's going further along El Cajon Boulevard. And this happens in every major metropolitan, too, is if you have a city core, you're going to have the urban ring that is the more hipster places, and that's where density is happening as well. And they want to live there because there is a sense of community. And there's a lot of different attributes in entertainment and what I say, project or community amenities. In these plans, if we go further out of where we're going to accommodate growth, if we pick San Marcos, Lakeside, El Cajon, Vista, Oceanside, and we're adding a ton of high-density housing, we're infilling properties. But there might not be the community amenities and the desire to live in these types of areas because you'll have to drive somewhere else, or you might be sandwiched between a shopping center and some little office building. So those areas would take much longer to develop if they develop at all. We ran an analysis on this based on all these housing preferences. Let's just say for a minute that I am a little bit right, and that we still want to have single-family homes over the next 35 years. That housing preference doesn't change. What it means is we'll have a housing shortage of single-family homes to the tune of 43,000 to 120,000 single-family homes that we would have needed. So if housing preferences do not change, there's always Temecula, right? And you laugh, but Temecula's already been happening. 37% of people that live in Temecula commute outside of Riverside County for work, 37%. So that means they're going to Orange County or San Diego County, and most of them are coming to San Diego County. So we need to work on filling this gap, and we have to think about, what's the economic impact of this as well, of this housing. If you're a job recruiter for the Qualcomm, the biotechs, all these higher paying jobs, from now on, they'll have to go out and say, we're not building any single family homes, but you have this nice condo in downtown San Diego or some other high density housing, and that's it. So how does that affect job recruitment for these higher paying jobs. Our economy, as we heard this morning, is higher paying, high tech, all that kind of industry, and most of them are, coming to North County especially, down Otay Mesa, and they want that single family home. Now that would be shut off. So we'll see salary increases, and guess what? We'll see home prices increase dramatically too, because it's going to go to the highest bidder, and we're just not building it anymore. This is already happening. This isn't something that I'm saying is coming down in the future. If you look at what we're building today, Sandag says between now and 2020, the next 5 years, we're not going to be delivering 60% single-family homes. There's no more land. We're cutting that in half. It's probably going to be 25 to 30% single-family homes. Most of it is already happening, and it's going to be multifamily. And if you look around in your own communities, the type of development that we're seeing is multifamily because we don't have any more land. So how does this, what's the impact here? And there's a severe impact, I would say, to the middle class. If you look at the housing delivery system, what's available today? New housing that we're adding. Think of an hourglass, okay? Big top, very skinny, and big at the bottom, right? So at the very top, especially if you go up into the North County, San Diego, homes are over $1 million for a new house. And you heard earlier how fast houses are appreciating as well. For every $600,000 home, there's two for over $1 million. And the $1 million homes are in the areas that are closer to the coast or closer to the center core. The $600,000 homes are Highway 78, further on the outskirts. That's only going to get worse. At the very bottom is what affordable housing is, subsidized housing. So we always hear, let's do affordable housing, let's do affordable housing. But what about this middle stem part that's really skinny that we're not building? We need housing that's affordable. And we need to start changing the conversation from we need to supply affordable housing, which is for incomes that are $50,000 or less. We still need that housing. It's important to provide it from a social perspective. But what about the middle class too? These higher paying jobs. Where are they going to live? How are they going to afford homes that you have a sticker shock of $1 million? What about the millennials? Millennials that are coming out of apartments. Guess what? There's no more entry-level housing for sale. You're going to come out of apartments and you're going to be sticker shocked with $700,000 plus. How do you accommodate that? So we've got this middle class that will be squeezed at this middle stem because we just are not delivering that type of housing. So I want to talk a little bit about the challenges to growth, and I'm not here to be pessimistic. I'm very optimistic about San Diego, especially for certain types of investments in residential as well. But it's time to get the dialogue going, and we've written a white paper on this recently. If you wanted to see it, you could see it on our website at londongroup.com, detailing all of this. And we wrote this white paper to get the conversation going with cities and with planners and with politicians, because we don't specifically believe these plans, the 300,000 housing units that will be accommodated. And here's why. It's hard to accept change, right? You've heard NIMBYs, not in my backyard. Bananas. Build absolutely nothing anywhere near anything. San Diego's starting to go bananas. There's several, since the Sandag did their forecast, there's several communities that we've already been working in our client portfolio. Hillcrest Community Group wants to downsize, their whole plan. Morena District wants to downsize their whole plan. Del Mar, we know what happened with One Paseo. Regardless of anybody's opinion of it, that was housing that we needed. And the residents came and performed a referendum. And there's no political assurity, I think, in the market today that if we have these plans for 300,000 housing units, how do we know that the community just won't stand up and reject it or go referendum and reject it that way? We need some assurances and I guess political cover that we actually will be able to grow according to this. Absent those community supports, let's just suppose all of those plans and there was no anti-community or communities that were anti-development, we have a problem with feasibility. And we've been running numbers for years on different projects. And when they did plans, planners say, well, we'll make this area 3 stories. The problem is we're out of land. So when you're out of land, you have to pay a higher price for that building there that may have the local Mexican grocery store, and I'm talking about South Park right now, that is worth $7 million. And you can't even get 3 or 4 stories on it because the landowner will just sell it because it's worth $7 million as the income stream. So we don't even have enough density in a lot of our communities to make projects feasible. Grantville is another area as well where there's a lot of industrial, single-story tenant roll-up, maybe some self-storage, and there were plans for 5- and 6-story buildings. And years ago, we ran these numbers and said 5- and 6-story buildings won't cut it. They'll just sell it as industrial. You've got to add 10 stories of density to make this happen. So what happened with these plans is we did a physical accommodation because the state told us to. We physically said, oh, we'll add 3 stories. That might be politically feasible. But nobody ran the economic numbers to say, 1, would developers want to be in this area? And 2, would something even pencil? Nobody's looking at the economics, and we've seen this constantly. So, we see some type of a housing shortage, of that 300,000 units that we need. But growth will happen. No growth is not an option. And so we will see growth happening throughout San Diego. And the areas that we're going to see are specifically downtown, like I talked about, the urban ring. Okay, these type of communities that have character and have the community amenities of wanting to be there and something to give back to the residents. They need to have the desirable attributes. The suburban updating, if it happens at all, okay, to the magnitude that we think it would, it's going to take time because communities are going to have to invest into the neighborhoods as well. You can't just add density to areas like San Marcos or Oceanside and just plug in a housing project. Okay, you've got to add, we'll give back to the community. Let's put a park here. Let's put in all these off-sites. What can we do to invest in the community? And that has to do with feasibility too. We will have some transit-oriented development. I think it's a little bit spotty. I do think that we have a messaging problem in San Diego when it comes to traffic. I don't think, and especially with SB 375 and all of these things, we're not thinking far enough ahead. We're thinking in today's market of how all these cars are polluters. But what about when we go to, electric cars, driverless cars, and we get those gas emissions down anyways? That can happen. Game changers. I heard a presentation the other day, and batteries, that's kind of a game changer. The iPhone was a game changer, right? Okay, so batteries are a game changer too. And there's universities all throughout America right now that are quantifying the battery life and working on it so that it's 5 to 15 times stronger than what we already have today. It's a huge deal for cars. If we could get rid of gas, and it may happen in 10 years, 15 years from now, and there goes our gas emissions. We don't have to worry about those greenhouse gases. I think we need to be planning and thinking forward about those kind of impacts before anything. But in the meantime, when it comes to growth, I don't think it's prudent to shut down the pipeline of single-family homes. Right now, we just are not building that many. I think last year we did about 2,000 housing units. And the outlook for the next 5 years is we'll get lucky if we get 2,000 housing units that are single-family homes, when historically we need 6,000 to 7,000. So we can't shut that door immediately because it could impact our economy and these higher paying jobs and the middle class as well, and housing prices. So if they're not happening, we need to look for smart areas throughout the county that can accommodate single family home growth and let the housing preferences transition if they do. My last point I want to make, and then if there's any questions, I'll take any questions. The outlook that I have on the short term is that apartments are here to stay, mainly because of the cohorts that we have coming through in Gen Y, the millennials, and then right behind it is Gen Next. Apartments will be a stabilized asset class for years to come. But we are seeing changes in apartments as well. In our client portfolios, we've seen that they're starting to plan for these millennials that are going to want more space or start to have children. And if we're not supplying the larger homes, how are we going to accommodate that? So developers are starting to forward think and say, how can we build an apartment project that are small units today, but later we can knock down walls, combine units, and make them larger horizontally, make them vertically. So we're seeing some flexibility in design and some innovation in that. So apartments is a very good market to be in. The last thing is single-family homes is going to come back, if it hasn't already today, I believe, as an investment. It went away for an investment, right, with all the downturn, but given the constraints that we have in housing preferences that I believe will be in place, single-family homes will come at a premium. And all you have to do is look at North County, San Diego, and see what prices have been doing, especially for these new homes. So it could be that single-family homes are a good investment. If I had extra money today, I'd buy a couple. The other thing we're seeing for single-family homes is developers actually building them, but renting them out. So for the first time, we're starting to see projects that are a new addition to the rental inventory. And Lennar's doing it up in Reno right now. And this could happen here in San Diego. I would not be surprised. And this ultimately could get rolled into, the REIT portfolios and traded up and all that. But this is another answer again, mainly because if prices are so high, you may be able to rent these homes out and get a good return on the investment as well. So with that, I thank you for your time. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take some.